It's at the end of July or maybe early August by the time you're watching this, and you wouldn't think it'd be a crazy time for Notre Dame football recruiting, but Irish fans, it's been bonkers this week. We're recording this Saturday, July 30th, and typically we don't record videos on Saturdays, but there's just been so much recruiting news happening in the 2023 class to discuss. A lot of, I would say, unexpected developments for the most part, at least. So I'm going to bring on Tim Hyder, football analyst. I'm Mike Singer over at Blue and Gold, cover the recruiting beat. And the news of the day was the Fighting Irish extending an offer to Pope John Paul II high school class of 2023 quarterback Kenny Minchey, 4-star quarterback per On3 and the On3 composite, or excuse me, On3 consensus ranking. And then Minchey is committed to Pittsburgh, pledge he gave in April. So, Tim, we want to get Notre Dame fans familiar with this young man and his film before we dive into kind of thoughts about the recruiting process and how Notre Dame got to this point with, and maybe where Minchey stands. But first, him as a quarterback, what do you think about him on film?
A really good football player. I mean, when you watch him, his first minute and a half is him just throwing some beautiful, beautiful bombs, some posts, some seam routes, go routes on the outside that are just boom on the money. And look at that play. Great football play there. There's one for all the fans out there, and you watch his highlight film, you Google it and whatnot, go to like the 220 mark. I mean, he looks like Patrick Mahomes. He does a pirouette, turns, throws 50 yards on a dime sideways, hits the guy right in his chest, which
we'll get to it here in a minute.
I think it's the 220-ish mark right in there. It is just beautiful football play. And then, fans got to know this young man was at the Elite 11. He, doing a little research on him, he was the day 2 number 1 performer there at that combine. He had a great pro day from what I was reading online from all the reports. So good football player. He's one of those head scratchers like, all right, the Dante Moore thing's been kind of dead in the water for a while. What are we waiting on? Because you got to have a quarterback, and obviously they're waiting on the Texas guy, but he's good. He could throw the ball. He looks like a bunch of guys Notre Dame's had as far as Everett Golson, Brandon Wimbush, of just being some really good looking pocket guys that could throw the deep ball. I don't know if he had the arm as Golson could chuck it forever, but there are some throws on here that are just really sweet to watch. And obviously he comes from the high school where Golden Tate went to. So that's a big plus, a little thing for Notre Dame fans to know. And obviously he is committed. And real quick on that is, let's don't forget Notre Dame has flipped three quarterbacks in the last, decade. And, it's funny, the 3 they flipped, Golson, they flipped from UNC, takes him to the national title game. Brandon Wimbush, they flipped from Penn State. He takes them 1 game away from getting into the Final Four in 2017. And obviously Ian Book, who they flipped from Washington State, takes him to the playoffs twice. So maybe flipping a quarterback is good news for Notre Dame. We'll see.
I think that play might be coming up here pretty soon, Tim.
Yeah, I think it was right around the 220. It's a beautiful play.
Yeah, you mentioned the Golden Tate High Schools. That's certainly an interesting connection. I don't know how much of a factor that will be, but certainly worth mentioning. He's listed at 6'1".
But look at that right there. Yeah. Just on the money. Boom. It's just beautiful. It's like, wow, that's a heck of a highlight play right there. How's that the first play?
He looks bigger than 6'1". And I don't know. Maybe something about his stature that, it doesn't seem like, one of those smaller quarterbacks, that Notre Dame's had in recent years.
Yes.
He looks good on film. As far as the recruitment goes, I mean, sometimes when a school offers a kid, it's not because they're not getting other, player B, but in this case, it does seem like with Austin Novosad, who we've covered a lot at Blue and Gold in our YouTube channel here, it does seem like he's going to end up at Baylor, the school he's committed to right now, or A&M, where his parents both went. It just seems like Notre Dame's not going to land him. Brock Glenn, who Notre Dame had kind of had some interest in, and then Ohio State was after Novosad. Brock Glenn ends up committing to the Buckeyes. So I think it's at least worth mentioning that, Glenn's completely off the board. Notre Dame hadn't offered him. And then Ohio State now has a quarterback. So there's just like a lot of schools vying for just a few quarterbacks. It's been a really interesting cycle. But it does seem like this Minchey offer is, in response to where the Irish think they're at with Novosad.
Oh, no, you're right. I mean, just speaking on the quarterback has been wild. I mean, Malachi Nelson's in A&M today, this weekend, which is just wild news. So it's yeah, quarterback recruiting never takes a break. But real quick on his stature, which you mentioned, Mike, was yeah, he's not short like Golson, small, like those type of guys, or Book. He looks a little thicker in the lower body, and good looking stature. Looks like a solid 6'1". One of the first things I noticed when watching his film is amazing pocket presence. He wants to throw the football. He's not going to run around, sit back there and scramble and just run around and get yards. He has great awareness. You could tell how he sidesteps and finds the open holes to throw some darts in there. So really good quarterback, some solid mechanics, and looks like he's got a good little feel in that pocket. And if he comes to Notre Dame, he's definitely a Notre Dame quarterback who could play for them down the road if need be.
Yeah. And Tim, we will have many shows to talk about Notre Dame quarterback recruiting and in hindsight and everything, because it's been a really interesting cycle.
Yep.
With Dante Moore, and then what's kind of happened since. I personally don't think they're done offering quarterbacks. I really don't. But we will move along. Kenny Minchey, and we'll have more on Notre Dame quarterback recruiting at blueandgold.com this weekend. This Dylan Edwards recruitment, Tim, has just changed so drastically. Notre Dame offers Wednesday night, right? At least that's when he announced it. The next day, he's on campus for a couple days, and then Friday night, he's decommitted from Kansas State, and I'm hearing very good things about where the Irish stand. Look, it doesn't take a brain surgeon to figure out that Notre Dame's in a good spot for him, considering they offered. He visited the day afterwards, then he decommits from Kansas State, the school that he committed to just a month ago. He decommits from them the day he's at Notre Dame. It seems pretty clear that Notre Dame's the leader. I've logged a prediction, and I think that he will probably end up on a school's commit list before the start of his senior season. And again, my projection is Notre Dame. So what's your reaction to this news, Tim?
Just fascinating. Seriously fascinating. It's yeah, you're right. He gets an offer, and he's sitting there on the internet getting a plane ticket within 2 hours. Goes to South Bend for a couple days instantly right before the dead period. So great news for Notre Dame, obviously, that he's decommitted. He is, we did a video talking about him the other day. Dynamic, speed. He's a playmaker. He's going to be a slot, a return guy, bubble screens, reverse, all those types of, things to get balls to, football players with his athletic ability. He's a speed guy. And the more you have of bodies like him on the football field, Micah Bell, Chris Tyrese, these guys that could go 98 yards in a heartbeat, bring them on. And no, it's classic recruiting, right? Sometimes where a kid is just interested, he checks it out. Plus, I believe his dad played at K-State, so he's a K-State legacy. And, and I'm sure his dad says, son, you got to go look at Notre Dame. Sometimes you just can't turn down the Irish. So I'm sure that's what happened on their visit.
So with recruiting, it can often be, why do kids commit in the first place if you're not sure? But hey, when a kid flips to you, I don't hear many people complaining about that, for Irish fans at least. Speaking of a player who's looking around and is committed to Notre Dame, is Peyton Bowen. Man, again, I started off the video saying this week was crazy. Payton Bowen's on Friday. Let your imagination run wild. And I probably heard that as a possibility. Folks I'm talking to connected to recruitment think it's going to happen. He visited Texas A&M on Friday. I haven't gotten report where he visited Saturday. Who was between staying at A&M an extra day. Excuse me. I'm sorry. It was Oklahoma Friday, and it was going to be A&M Saturday. I'm sorry. People thought that Oklahoma was going to get him on Saturday, or he was just going to, go to A&M, which I had reported, or again, stay at OU both days, and maybe he's going to flip to OU, or maybe flip to A&M. Who the heck knows? But Tim, it's been a bit of a crazy recruitment.
Oh, without a doubt, but he also has a younger brother that's getting just as highly recruited as Peyton is, and could he be piggybacking on some of those rides and whatnot, and enjoying some free barbecue down there? But no, it's been a wild one, and this is in my humble opinion, a must get, because wasn't he Marcus Freeman's first commitment? Didn't he come in on January 1st, the Fiesta Bowl? Was that Peyton? Yes. I believe so. So, he's a Marcus Freeman commitment. He's a defensive guy that Freeman recruited all last year. And he's at a position where Notre Dame has just not gotten elite safeties to come in and be able to play on day one. They've had very few in the last 20 years. It's been a handful of top 100 safeties. So Peyton Bowen's a heck of a football player. I fully expect him to stay with Notre Dame. I think it's going to keep going back to that Marcus Freeman mantra of why'd you commit? Keep remembering that. Keep that same type of philosophy, talking to him and his family, and get up to South Bend as soon as you can soon.
Yeah, so Peyton Bowen committed to Notre Dame. For now, who knows what's going to happen. I'm with Tim. I think he ends up sticking with the Irish, but I don't know. Flip a coin. We'll find. Yeah, it's recruiting. There's been a lot of unexpected twists and turns this week, so that's why we have to do another one of these videos to kind of cover all that's happened. And we will have more Notre Dame football recruiting information at blueandgold.com, as well as our YouTube channel here. So make sure you guys hit that thumbs up on this video, subscribe to our channel if you have not yet, and go to blueandgold.com. It's at the top of the site, $1 for 1 year of premium access. Appreciate you guys, and we will catch you next time.